Okay, hello, and welcome to your first big-ish project. We've done a bunch of mini projects up until now, and at this point we are going to work on a bigger project. So at one point we actually worked on a tip calculator, and we just wrote the JavaScript for it, but we didn't actually write the front end, which is an important aspect of JavaScript. So in this project, we are going to be creating a tip calculator and actually displaying the totals in the document object model in the actual browser. So there are a few things I would like you to do. First of all, you need to have a bill amount, however much that's going to be. We need an input field to grab that value, that number. We need a tip percent, and then we're going to need some sort of event. So when we click calculate tip and total bill, it's actually going to work those numbers, and then it's going to tell us how much we should tip and how much the total bill will be with the tip. So for this, we're going to use the onClick event on the button, and then we're also going to use a couple of query selectors to grab these values. So there should be a calculate event, an onClick event. So whenever you click this button, it calculates the total tip and total bill with the tip on top of it. It's supposed to grab the numbers, whatever numbers are in here at the time when you click the button, and then it's going to display the total tip amount and the total tip amount with the bill on top of that. Now, as you can see, I already have some of the layout built in here. I'm just using regular Bootstrap, so there's nothing fancy going on, and we're going to use vanilla JavaScript to get this done. Now, you're going to be using a function, an event, and a number of query selectors. Now, I would like you to give this a shot on your own. See if you can figure this out on your own. At this point in time, you can pause the video right here and give it a shot. It shouldn't take more than maybe 15 or 20 minutes total. And hey, you know what? If you get stuck, just resume the video and I will show you exactly how I go about the solution. All right, let's take a look at how I would create a tip calculator using two input fields and a button. So let's go through my UI first, the HTML, just so you sort of know what I'm working with here. In here, I have a label for the bill amount and an ID for the bill amount, and that's just the regular total bill. We're going to put a number in there, for example, $25.99, whatever the meal is going to cost. Let's say you're at a restaurant and it costs $25.99. This is the bill amount. So I'll be using an ID, but you can use a class if you wanted to. You could use anything else. Whichever way you want to select this element, that's up to you, but I'm going to use an ID because it's the only one that's going to be on this page. I basically did the same thing with a tip amount. So the tip amount is going to be a percentage. It has an ID. We can see that here. The ID is tip amount and the placeholder is IE like 9 or 9%. And then we're going to have to take that 9% and turn it into a decimal. And then we've got a button in here, so we've got, some more formatting in here, but primarily we have a button that says calculate tip and total bill. And lastly, we have a row that we can't see yet, and I'll actually demonstrate this. 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. And here's where we're going to display the tip amount and the total with the tip. So just because I don't have any values in there, it looks like it's currently invisible. So when this is calculated, we're going to fill these divs with some sort of text or HTML in it. So let's go ahead and get this started. Let's dissect this moving backwards. We want this form, well, it's actually not really a form, it's an event. It's not using a form element, so we're not submitting a form. We need an event on the button. So whenever someone clicks this button, it needs to do something. So the first things first is we go to our button and we use onClick. And then we need to give it a function name. So let's give it a function name of calculate. And at that point, the project really starts to guide us. So we have calculate in there, and I'll make this just a little bigger here. We have a function in here called calculate, and now we need to add a script in here. And we need to create a function called calculate. Now we don't know what this is going to take yet, but we do know that we have a function called calculate and it has to exist. So let's go ahead and do a console log, clicked. And when I refresh the page and open up my inspect tools here in the console, and let's just make that bigger, let's click here. Clicked, click, 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 click. Okay, good. The click event is working. Next, we need to be able to grab the total bill amount and the total tip amount. So how are we going to grab these elements? Well, we know these elements are inputs. So we need to grab the value of them. Currently, there's no value in there, but when we type, there could be a value in there. So let's go ahead and create a query selector for each one. So let's create a variable for the bill amount, and that's going to be document dot. Now we're not going to use query selector. We're going to use get element by ID. And what was that ID? We have bill amount and tip amount. Bill amount, and we have the same thing down here. Tip amount. That's near the bottom, so that's kind of hard to see. Now these are just the nodes. These are the HTML elements. This is not the actual value. So we could at this point do something like dot value, or we could put these into new variables or overwrite the existing variables with something like tip amount is equal to tip amount dot value. And I didn't spell that right because that is technically a different variable. There we go. So we could do it one of two ways here. I'm going to leave both of these in here just as an example. Now at this point, we don't know if either of these are numbers, so we're going to have to work with that a little bit. Let's go ahead and cast these as numbers. So let's say bill amount is equal to the bill amount, and in here we just want to cast this as a number. And we want to do the same thing with the tip amount, but we could actually even do it in here like this. And in fact, we could even do it this way. So now let's go ahead and console log these. Let's do console.log bill amount and the tip amount. And so when I refresh the page and I put a number in here, let's say 12 is the first one and 34 is the second one, we see 12 and 34. So we know that these are working. And if we were to console log the type of each one, we would know that they would be a number. So we can now do appropriate math with them. We don't have to worry about concatenating it so that the total turns out to be 1, 2, 3, 4. We know that if we were to add these together, it would be 46 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's an actual addition and not a concatenation. And we make sure that that's the case by using a number. Now the tip amount is currently a number. The tip amount is by default, well, by default it's 9, but right now I have 34 showing. So default is 9 as the placeholder text. That's not what the actual default is, but it says that's, example 9. We need to turn this into a decimal. So let's go ahead and change the tip amount is equal to tip amount divided by 100. So that just changes 9. So let's say 9 is going to turn into 0.09. That's basically all it's going to do. And now at this point, we need to create a total tip amount. So I have some pretty bad naming conventions in here because I'm just calling it all tip amount. You might want to rename yours so that it's a little more verbose, a little more discreet, so you always know what you're working with. I'm just going to use tip amount in here. And I'm going to create a new variable called total tip. Var total tip is equal to the bill amount times the tip amount. And that's it. And at this point in time, if I save and refresh the page, there's no errors in here. And I know that I can now select this and put the total tip in there. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do document.querySelector. And we want to use the tip amount CSS selector. .inner HTML. We usually do this in a couple different steps, but in this case, we're just going to do it all in one line. And that inner HTML is simply going to be the total tip. We could use inner HTML or we could use inner text. We're not using HTML, so we should probably use inner text, but we might want to spice this up a little bit later. Okay, so I put, let's say 50 and 10, and if this works out, the total tip amount should be 5. And there we go, it says 5 right there. It's a little small, we'll make that bigger. And in fact, because it's HTML, we could say HTML total tip, and then in here we can make a small element, concatenate all this. And in fact, what I want to do is actually split this onto new lines. So let's do var tip HTML. And this just keeps it nice and clean by putting it on 2 lines. And so I close the small tag and the h3 tag, and then I put tip HTML in here, and let's rerun this. So again, let's put something like 100 and put a total tip amount of 25%. So we know 25 of 100 is going to be 25, and total tip 25. We could put a $sign in there if you know you're working with dollars. And something we didn't learn, but could be kind of fun to work with. If you want decimal points in there, you could do 2 fixed 2. And that just makes sure that there's always 2 decimal points in there. So let's go ahead and refresh and give this a shot. 125, and this will say 25.00. So I don't expect you to know the 2 fixed thing, but hey, that's a cool little trick. And I like to throw those little tricks and tips into these project solutions as well. It kind of gets you more familiar with some of the different ways we can do things in JavaScript without necessarily needing a whole lesson around it. So we have our total tip. Now we need the total bill amount. So let's do var total bill amount. And all we want to do here is add the total tip, the one that we've already calculated, to the bill amount. That's the regular bill amount. And let's go ahead and copy this line here because we're not going to change too much. So tip HTML is going to be, let's say, bill HTML total bill with tip. And we're going to need to change this to match total bill amount. And so this variable now matches this variable. Let's put this on separate lines as well. Let's do this. Make it nice and easy to read. And then lastly, we just need to grab our node element from the HTML. So we need to use a query selector. So document.query selector. We don't want the tip amount. We want the total with tip div. So total with tip. And we could do inner HTML is equal to bill HTML. Let's go ahead and refresh and let's give this a shot. Let's do some basic numbers so that we know this is always going to work out. So we've got a bill of $100 and a tip of $25, or 25%, not $25. 25 out of 100, 25% out of 100 is going to be 25. So the tip amount should say 25. And then the total bill amount, assuming we did everything right, is going to be $125. And boom, just like that, we've got total tip, $25, and total bill with the tip, $125. And let's go ahead and do something a little crazier, because bills are not usually just $100. Let's say $87.43, so $87.43, and a tip amount as a percentage. So maybe you generally like to give 15%, and you don't want to work out that math in your head, so you just click calculate tip and total bill. And it tells you that your new tip is going to be $13.11 and your total bill is going to be $100.54. So there you go. That is a calculator project. It's the tip calculator project. It is a larger one, and we are using a little more functionality within the document object model. So we're actually using input values. We're actually calculating it with a function. We're not actually even returning anything because this has more to do with events and not really storing data as a variable. We don't really need to return anything, but if we wanted to, just for good measure, we could always return the total bill amount like this, or if we wanted to put this into an array, we could say the total tip amount, comma, the total bill amount. And now we have access to this function in the browser console, so we can run calculate. And it's just going to grab the numbers from our page automatically, and it's going to return an array with the tip amount and the bill amount, the total tip and the total bill. So let's go ahead and give this a refresh. And let's do this. Let's say 92.67, and the total tip amount is going to be 8. And in here we can say totals is going to be calculate. And it doesn't take any parameters. It's automatically grabbing the parameters that it requires from the input fields from your document object model. And look at that. It automatically changes our page, plus it also returns the total tip amount, plus the total bill with the tip. Albeit, it looks like it returned strings, so if you wanted to, you could actually change that into a number. But, ta-da! So that's all there is for the tip calculator. I hope you learned something really cool. And as always, if you have questions, concerns, comments, you can always leave them down below.